So, Joe, I really am excited about our conversation today because I do think that self-esteem is a term we've heard a lot out there in the world over the years. Um, and yet I don't really know exactly if a lot of people know exactly what that means and exactly how we get there, how we get centered and stay in that place of holding our self-esteem. So maybe you can start there. Just pick up there. Tell us how you kind of made your way into this work that you're doing in the world, and let's take it from there.
Well, my quest began at 5 years old when I was bullied in the schoolyard by some teenagers, and it impacted my self-esteem. And I felt as though I wasn't good enough, wasn't strong enough, wasn't capable enough to survive in the world. And so I kind of lived a dim existence until really my 30s, when I took a personal development program that ended up starting at a year-long program and ended up being a 10-year quest. And during that time, I discovered that many people like myself had something happen to them early on in life where they made something up about themselves, about others, and about the world in general. And that interpretation didn't serve me, and it doesn't serve you, likely, if you made something up about yourself as being not good enough, unworthy, unlovable, not being able to attract the right person, something like that. So what I've since learned through my own research and the work that we do at the Center for Personal Reinvention over the last 27 years is that self-esteem really is at the core of all of society's ills. Everything from school dropouts to drug addiction to violence to abusive situations, settling for less, low income, socioeconomic depression. All of these things are all linked to low self-esteem. And for this program, especially settling for the wrong guy or the wrong person, giving up on yourself as not deserving of having someone that is just your dream person, is all sourced in low self-esteem. And the good news is that you can deal with that. You can clean that up. You can heal your past. You can do a proper assessment of what's so right now in your present life and who you are and what's missing that can be put into place to support you and your relationships. And you can also design a future in choice, a future that is bright and has high self-esteem as its foundation, so that not only do you feel great about the person that you are, but you're going to be attracting a person that's comparable to your energy and is a great soulmate, a great match for your how you hold yourself and how you hold others. So all of that is intricately related to living a happy life. And so for me, self-esteem, high self-esteem, is the number one ingredient essential for not only being fulfilled and happy in life, but attracting your ideal relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much there. And thank you for that introduction, Joe. If you were to crystallize this down and define the term self-esteem, I'd like to hear how you actually define it. Because I think there is even, it seems like it's a term we've heard a lot, but I think there still is some confusion around exactly what does that mean? What does it mean?
Well, it has, for my definition, it has a number of different components to it. It's about feeling worthy of all of the good things that are in life. It's about forgiving yourself for the mistakes that you made, knowing that we're all human and that we all make mistakes, and that what the appropriate behavior is when we make a mistake is to clean up our mess and to learn from the experience and to do better moving forward. It's about being valued and validated and validating others as being worthy of love and affection and abundance and rich relationships and fulfilling work and all of the rest. And it's really about knowing that your worth goes beyond self-confidence. It's about knowing that you're inherently valuable. And if there's something blocking that value so that you have diminished self-esteem, it's knowing that you have the ability to put those missing elements into place, which is a lot of what we're going to be speaking about today, so that you can go forward proud of the person that you are, holding your head up high, knowing that it's not arrogance, it's a self-assuredness that you were blessed with value as a human being, and that if there's some elements that are missing that need to be put into place to help you to feel better about who you are, then you have that ability to do that moving forward to lead your best life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm really excited about what you have to share, Joe. And one of the reasons I really wanted to interview you and have you on this event was that I do resonate so strongly with your message and the things that you're teaching, because after working with women now for the past decade plus, one of the things that I find shows up so often is exactly what you're talking about, those feelings of unworthiness or feeling that you're not good enough or that you're unlovable in some way, or a woman's value or self-esteem kind of collapsing in the face of what a man does or doesn't do in the context of dating is what I'm talking about here. In other words, she might feel like she has to change herself or try to be someone different in order to have him like her. Or if he doesn't show up in the way she hopes, she loses her sense of her own value, or she doesn't feel worthy enough to begin with to believe that she can have the kind of person that she wants in her life. And the tricky part, and I always teach women, my whole work is centered around them being women of high value. That's what I call it, being a woman of high value to attract your high quality man. And so much of that is rooted in what we're talking about here, in being intrinsically knowing your own value, and it doesn't collapse in based on what is or isn't going on outside of you. One of the tricky things I find about this, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, is sometimes, so often, in fact, maybe even most of the time, a lot of this is running kind of underneath the surface, more on a subconscious level, and we're maybe not even fully aware of it, how big of an impact it's having.
Well, we're certainly at the effect of our negative self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
And that negative self-talk is there for two reasons. It's there to, one, have you do better, to keep you always striving on that treadmill of being good enough when you think that you're not. And more importantly than that, it's there to protect you. So it reminds you, remember the last time you asked someone out on a date, what happened and you were rejected, or the last time you accepted an offer of a date, how poorly it went, and there's something significantly wrong with you. And so it's giving you this nonsense. And if you believe it, if you confuse it with your intuition, then it's the beginning of your downfall, because your negative self-talk is very different from your intuition. Your intuition is based in love. It comes from the heart, not the head. You don't overthink it. And your negative self-talk, remember, it's there to protect you. And so how do we deal with that first? We thank your negative self-talk, which I like to picture as a little gremlin on my shoulder. So if you're a woman listening to me, it could be a female gremlin. And your appropriate behavior would be to say, okay, thank you for sharing. Now shut up. And let's look at the value of what you had to say. So is there something missing that I can put into place that would serve me better in this area? Or who am I being that this condition is showing up around me? So it gives you, its main value is to have you reflect a little bit around the missing elements as far as who you're being, what your energy is like. Is your energy conducive to attracting someone that's consistent with your energy? Or, do you feel not so good about yourself so that you become a doormat? So you start to attract maybe an abusive person, or you start to attract someone who doesn't feel good about themselves because that is what is consistent with your energy. So this is all beneath the surface, as you say. Mm-hmm. And so the thing to do would be to get feeling good about yourself in the 6 key areas of life, with your health and appearance, your wealth and finances, your career or your job, your relationships, your personal and spiritual areas of life, and the area of having fun and, pursuing your passions, living life with gusto. So when you can be a 10 in all of those areas, you now have a renewed sense of who you are that's consistent with attracting the best possible person based upon who your energy is allowing you to connect with. So energy is an important element in attracting your ideal person, because if you're unaware of how you land in the world, of how you're coming across to others, then perhaps you're giving signals that aren't consistent with what you want to show to the world and the person that you want to attract.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and I think we may not always realize that that energy that we're showing up in the world as, people can feel that. So it's not what we're pretending to be, it's who we really are and how we really feel inside that really actually attracts people into our lives. In other words, we can't like totally fake it, right? We can't just...
That's exactly right. You know, we put on an act to hide the person that we think we are that is unattractive to others. And of course, that act is full of problems because you come across inauthentically. You are out to deceive someone, really, if who you're pretending to be is not consistent with who you feel that you are, so that you're setting up the relationship to fail. So the thing to do is to get clarity about what are your great qualities? What are the qualities that you would be a huge asset to someone? What qualities are you proud of? And what's missing that, if put into place, would serve you to elevate the qualities that are now missing in your life? So, for example, let's say that you have something missing in regard to your health or your appearance. Well, you can work on those areas. You can get a makeover. You can stop smoking. You can, work out, and you can lose weight if that's something that you need to do to feel better about who you are. Whatever is stopping you from thinking that you're worthy, lovable, would make a great person as a partner, as someone that'd be fun to be with. One thing that I'm clear about is men are looking for one thing predominantly in a woman, and that is a fun playmate. And so that if you are fun and you are somebody that feels good about who you are, that's going to come across to someone else, and you're going to be attractive well beyond your physical appearance, well beyond any limitations that you might feel that you have. So it's important for you to be authentic, for you to list all the qualities that you feel as being your strengths. And those are the qualities that you're going to continue to enhance. And then make a list of all the qualities that you feel maybe you're a little bit deficient on. And ask yourself, maybe with the help of a coach, what can I do to enhance these qualities? So if I'm painfully shy, like I was for so many years, the shyness came out of what I mentioned, my bullying episode at 5 years old. I was tossed around like a football in the schoolyard by some teenagers. I hit my head on the concrete, went home with a concussion, and made up that I was small and insignificant, that people were mean and cruel, and that the world was a dangerous place. So now how am I going to attract a great person in a relationship knowing that that's how I felt about myself? I couldn't until I cleaned up my own self-perception. And what that took was separating out what I made up about myself with what actually happened. So early on in our lives, and it doesn't matter if you can remember these early childhood episodes, because we relive them day after day. In the latest upset that happened with a neighbor, a friend, a coworker, someone that we meet casually, the upsets, we have a tendency to collapse what someone said or did with what we made up about what they said or did, our interpretations about their words or their deeds. And when we collapse the two, we make things up that don't support us. And then we live out of this interpretation that says you are a certain way. And so you're unlovable, you're unworthy, you wouldn't make a good partner, you're not social enough, you're not smart enough, you're not wealthy enough, you're not pretty enough, whatever it is that you made up about yourself. And you also make up things about other people that you can't be with. And usually the qualities in the person that you're looking to attract that you can't be with are qualities that you can't be with in yourself. So until you've forgiven yourself for those qualities that you still hold guilt around, or a feeling that you're not good enough in these areas, then you're likely to attract the very qualities in another person that you hate in yourself. And that's going to lead to a relationship upset, a relationship collapse eventually. So there's three core qualities that I'd suggest that you take a look at. Empathy. What is it like in the other person's world? So that you have an ability to distinguish when someone says something versus how you're going to interpret it. So we all have the ability to interpret things in a way that offends us, if that's how you listen automatically, in a way where you feel vulnerable or you feel not good enough. Or we can interpret things in a way where we give up our right to be offended. We give up our right to be invalidated. We give up our right to be right and to make others wrong. And we just listen like a blank slate instead of with an agenda, because we all have an automatic listening that has been developed since birth, where we listen in a certain way to others. And in a relationship, that's very important, because if we listen in a way that doesn't support us, do you like me? Am I good enough for you? Are you good enough for me? What can you determine that's wrong with me? So listen for being invalidated all the time. Listen for hurry up and get to the point, so that if you're impatient in your listening, then you're not going to give a person who maybe takes a little bit while to think or to communicate a chance, because you'll have judged them prematurely. So all of this is to give you the best foundation to go into a relationship where you're not prejudging, because you have an option. You can be right about someone else, or you could be happy. And if you're constantly judging, if that's the way you listen to someone, if you're constantly listening for the flaw in that person or in yourself, if you're constantly listening about to do, what you did right, what you did wrong, so you're constantly on eggshells doing something wrong, all of those things will sabotage and they'll detract from the pure energy that you'll want to communicate subconsciously to someone to attract your ideal person.
Mm-hmm. So before you go on to the other qualities, I think you've just spoken about empathy here. A couple of things came to mind was one of my very favorite books, in fact, I have it right here in front of me, is The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And he talks in there about taking nothing personally, right? That's one of the four agreements, take nothing personally. Because I do think you're right. I think so many of the things that we hear, when we hear it through the filter of what stories we have in our minds or things we're referring back to subconsciously that happened to us younger in life, we do take things personally that are not meant personally. And just a little funny side note about that, my husband says to me sometimes, he'll say, now if I say something and you can interpret it in more than one way, and one of those ways hurts your feelings, I meant it the other way.
That's a great way to prepare your listening for him.
Right, exactly. And I believe him, right? I believe that that's true, that he's not intentionally going to say something that is going to, he's not saying something to hurt me, because I trust him and know he's got my back.
Yep. What he's doing is he's speaking his intention to never deliberately hurt you. And so, if you're sitting with something with a person that you listen to the unsaid in their communication, if they listen to be offended, for example, that is a great way to diffuse that, because what you're telling them is, my intention is not to offend you. So that if you ever find yourself being offended, stop, create a new interpretation, or ask me about it. Because if you ask me about it, I'll have the opportunity to clear things up, to specify what I really meant, or maybe I said it a little bit awkwardly and I didn't mean offense by it. And so that's a great way to enhance communication between a couple, so that you can actually set the stage for a listening that empowers people to not have withholds, because withholds damage relationships. And so when you say something or your partner says something that offends you or you've offended them, we have a tendency to stuff it. And by withholding our communication, it builds up. And before we know it, it explodes, because we have all of these things that we made up, all of these things that we decided about that person, that maybe some are true and some aren't true. But if you don't give the person a chance to, one, express what they mean, and two, clean up any messes that they might have unintentionally made, then you're really setting up the relationship for disaster long term. So open, clean communication, watching your tone, and inviting your partner to train them as to how you're to be communicated with. So if someone is used to yelling at you, then perhaps you need to let them know that you don't know what their relationships have been like in the past, but your relationships you have a commitment to them being based on trust and love and sound, clean communication. So that if the tone is off, then you're going to remind them about how it is that you've committed to speaking with a partner in a relationship. And they'll have a choice. They'll have a choice to either embrace that and to speak with respect and with love, as is your commitment, or then they'll make the decision that maybe you're not the one for them, that they need somebody that they can manipulate and abuse, and you're not that type of doormat, so that you will have graciously trained someone as to how to be with you. And this is important because you don't want to stuff it and then years later regret the relationship when you let yourself go. And the more that you are treated poorly, the worse you feel about yourself. Your self-esteem continues to diminish and the resentment builds. And before you know it, you have a life of withholds and resentments and a destroyed relationship. So from the beginning, get clarity about who you are. Get clarity about who the person is that you want to attract to you. And make sure that your energy is consistent with that, how you hold yourself. List all of those qualities. List all of the qualities of the person that you want to attract. And, no one is going to be perfect. So give up your right to be perfect yourself. Give up your right to expect perfection from your partner, and know that your commitment is to excellence and demand that excellence from someone else in a loving way. Don't make someone wrong, because you have the ability to be right or to be happy, but you can't be both. So that if you're communicating all of this in a condescending way where you're making someone wrong, you're setting up a relationship struggle right from the start. So always act from love, commit to having an intention when you speak, and speak from that intention. And when you hear something from your partner that doesn't align with that idea of clean, loving communication, don't stuff it. Say it in a way that you can be heard. Using empathy. What is it like in that person's world that they would say something like that to me? And how can I diffuse this in a way where it doesn't become a problem? So that you actually, over time, through your loving responses and you're training people how you're to communicate and the communication you expect, you're setting the stage for a loving relationship that builds day to day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it sounds like you're setting standards and you're setting boundaries. And I think of the quote from Dr. Phil that says, we teach other people how to treat us. And I do think we can teach other people how to treat us. The piece I love that you added in here so much, Joe, is starting from that place of thinking what it might be like in their world, and then more or less kind of setting that standard, but doing it in a way where you take into account some compassion for them and giving them that opportunity to perhaps show up in a higher, better way, if you will.
It's because one of the problems that many women experience in relationships is they have this idea about their ideal person. And as soon as that person violates something that is in contrast to that ideal, they write them off right then and there. And based upon what I said a little bit ago, that there is no perfection out there, you can know that if you're with someone long enough, sooner or later they're going to say something that you don't like. So, if you want to be with someone and not be alone your entire life, it would serve you to grow with the person, to speak from your intention and to share with them that that's what you're doing, and that you have an intention to be in clean, loving communication with them, and that you would ask that they know, like your husband trained you, that anytime you're upset about something that I say, know that it wasn't intentional, so that we can clean it up. So that if you set that foundation early on about how you are to relate to someone else and what you expect from them, and it's not perfection, but it is a commitment to excellence, a commitment to clean, respectful communication. And we all get angry at times. We all lose our cool. We all, say things that we didn't mean. What the appropriate behavior then is to admit it, to admit we made a mistake, apologize, commit to doing better, and to look at what we learned from that episode. And when we can constantly grow and share and be transparent with another person, and many times we are afraid of being vulnerable, but I don't mean vulnerable in the sense of weakness. I mean vulnerable in the sense of being transparent and having someone see our heart, because that's actually a source of strength. And many women are afraid to show their vulnerability, as many men are as well, because they think that it will be taken advantage of, that people will see it as a sign of weakness and abuse them because of what they know. But again, if we share in a relationship a commitment to that same transparent quality, then we know that for a relationship to be warm and loving and growing and nurturing and worthwhile, we need some degree of vulnerability in order to have the authenticity come forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and vulnerability is another word we hear out there a lot, and I think this is such a powerful piece, because I think when we are vulnerable, when we're able to allow someone to see our heart, and when we're able to share from that place that's authentic, it also makes it safe for someone else to do that too, because we're not doing this little dance of the facades, of the masks of who we're trying to pretend to be because we think that's who this other person expects or wants us to be. And then that tends to have them doing the same thing, because like we already talked about, whether or not we know it, people could feel that. They can sense that energy. They can tell that, there's a barrier, or there's a wall, or there's something fake or phony. And so another thing I think so the authenticity piece and the vulnerability piece, it makes it safe for both people to interact in that way. And you can set that intention to show up that way, and that helps invite that from that other person. Mm-hmm. And the other thing about this that I think is really interesting is that that vulnerability for me, and I remember talking to John Gray about this one time in one of my interviews with him. Vulnerability spans not only showing, those parts of ourselves that feel a little tender or a little delicate, or that we might even feel some shame around, but the vulnerability also includes sharing our joys, our passions, our dreams, our hopes. That can feel vulnerable to share that too. But it's not just this, like what we might perceive as kind of the negative side of the equation. It spans this whole spectrum.
Yeah, it's really about sharing who you are and
right.
your ups, your downs, your life. And if, a relationship isn't that encompassing where you can share those things, then it's probably not going to last, because you're protective to the point where you're not vulnerable, you're not authentic, you're not holding that other person as wanting to share in your joys and your adventures and your winning. So it's really great to really get to a point where you feel good about yourself, you feel good about the other person, and you know that, you don't have to keep your guard up. And so you might say, well, how do I do that? Well, I've identified 3 components that are essential to building high self-esteem. It's part of our self-esteem system. And so briefly, the first is to heal and complete your past, to go back and to reinterpret those upsets in your life, whether they were in your childhood or they happened yesterday, and to create an empowered interpretation that involves learning and growing, that you were given a gift in those tragic times, those times of struggle, those times of upset, that you learned something from those. And you are the person today because of all of those upsets that you had to go through to be that person. I hold it that the biggest gift I was ever given was when I was 5 years old and I got that concussion for being bullied, because I would have never been exposed to what it feels like to not feel good about yourself, to not have the ability to complete with something, which is what I had to do in order to do this work, to feel good about who I was and know that I made all of those things up, just like you made all of those things up about you that's held you back. And you can make up something else that has empathy and gratitude and forgiveness as components to it that serve you moving forward. So healing and completing your past, forgiving other people for the mistakes that they made, knowing that they were gifts to you, whether you believed it or realized it at the time or not. The second component, once you're healed and complete, and there's a dozen or so exercises that I give to allow you to achieve that completion. The second area is with respect to relationships, let's talk. It's doing a thorough evaluation of what's so right now in your life. So what's working in your life and what's missing that if put into place would support you in all the key areas of life. So in terms of your relationship, the qualities that you're proud of, list as many of the qualities that you can identify with, that you're proud to be a part of. And then list another list of all the qualities where you like to develop further. Self-confidence, maybe being calm-centered, maybe being a better listener, maybe being happier, maybe being able to communicate your emotions more freely, maybe being able to manage your negative emotions like anger or sadness or fear more effectively. Whatever that list is. And then every day you can take one quality and declare that I'm going to be working on this quality today. So if the quality, for example, let's say the quality is to contribute to other people. Maybe you're going to have the intention that that day, everyone that you interact with, that you meet new, or your friends or your coworkers or whatever, you're going to make their day a little bit better than you found them. And that's your intention for the day. And so you do it until it becomes a habit. And once you get good at that, you've transformed, you've reinvented yourself in that area. And you do the same series of reinventions by developing other qualities that you want to be known for. So you're no longer at the effect of your past. You've done a proper assessment of what's working and what's missing in your life. And you now then look to the future as far as living the qualities that you want to display. So how do we do that? We get clarity around what we want to be known for. And that starts with our life purpose. If we're not clear about our life purpose, which is how we're going to use the energy of our lives to contribute to ourselves and to other people and to the world, then we're living not deliberately. We're living by accident. And so that's why we get all of these things that we don't know how to deal with, all the problems and the challenges in life. But if we're living intentionally, those problems are a gift to us because we're looking at them through the filter of who am I being that this is showing up around me? And what is the lesson that I need to learn that it's teaching me here? So that we get to live through an intentional energy that is conveyed in our life purpose. And our life purpose can be to inspire others to be the best, to be fun, to be light and a fun person to be around. It could be to be an expression of love. It could be to be a great teacher. It doesn't have to be, it could be to be a champion. It doesn't have to be a complicated life purpose, but it's something that represents who you are at your core that you could do for the rest of your life and never get tired of doing. So when you're clear about that life purpose, let's look at, in terms of a relationship, creating a vision for your life. So if you could wave a magic wand over your life, what would your relationship look like? What would that ideal person look like? Who would you be in that relationship? What qualities would you exhibit? What would you do on a day-to-day basis? What would you have around you in your life? Would you, be living in a beautiful home with beautiful scenery around you? Would you have pets and plants, or, where would that be? What would your relationship look like with that ideal someone that you want to attract? And what about the other relationships in your life? Your friends, your coworkers, your family? How would those relationships be characterized? So to the extent that you get clarity, you'll take advantage of the principle that says that a mind can't distinguish something that's real from something that's vividly imagined. So that if you can create that vision, make it real, write it down in first person present tense as if it's already transpired, and then read it at least twice a day, in the morning when you wake up and at night before you go to bed, you will step into that vision. The qualities of being that you want to exhibit, what you'll do on a daily basis, who you'll contribute to, what you'll have in your life. And importantly, when you get clarity around that vision and you believe it, it becomes who you are. And it's about expecting the future to be happy, fulfilling, abundant, a great thing that awaits you. Because when you look upon your relationships and your future with that positive expectation, you're now on the path to making that happen for real. You're going to then create the vision, write it down, read it twice a day, set goals so that every part of your vision is manifest through your goals. Some of them are short-term goals. I'm going to get a makeover. I'm going to get my hair cut. I'm going to get some dental work done. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to do whatever you feel would make you feel better about yourself and be a more attractive person in a relationship. You're also going to set some short-term, medium, long-term goals that have actions behind them. So daily actions, weekly actions, monthly actions, and these change. You're going to review these every month so that, because this is a dynamic vision that always is growing and changing as you grow and change. The actions are consistent with making the goals happen and the vision happen. And you're going to develop a personal development plan so that when you say, okay, I'm painfully shy, I avoid people and parties, I'm going to work on being more comfortable with who I am so that my relationships aren't as strained, so that my relationships are more of me being comfortable with giving to another person with my communication, with my love, with who I am. So if that's the area of development that you're taking on, then you're going to hold things differently. When someone invites you out or to a party, you're not going to hold it as, oh, here's another chance for me to fall on my face like I did so many times. You're going to hold it as, okay, I'm going to be myself. I'm going to talk about the other person, ask them about their life. I'm going to make their day. I'm going to leave them better than I found them. And that's my intention for the personal development component of my vision. By having a complete roadmap where you start out with your life purpose, you are clear about your vision, and your vision goes beyond your relationships. It's about your work. It's about your life. It's about your health. It's about your fun. It's about your finances. It's about your career. It's about your fulfilling work. It's about all the things that are important to you in life. You've set goals that align with all of those. You've taken actions and you've written down the actions so that if you had to bet on you achieving it based upon what your action steps are, you would either say, yes, I see that these are in alignment with me getting to where I want to be, or no, these things are missing. And sometimes you need a coach to help you. And I know that you're a great coach when it comes to supporting people to get there. And then lastly, what are you working on? What qualities are missing that you want to develop that would make you a better partner, that would make you a happier partner, that would make you someone who is more able to contribute the wonderful person that you are to someone else? So that when you've done those three things, you've cleaned up your past, you've done a proper assessment of what's so in your life right now, and you've designed your vision, your life in choice, you can step into it with passion and live passionately. Now you've turn yourself into the type of person that you'd want to be with. And when you're that person, you've attracted the person who is your soulmate, the person who will see that energy and those qualities that you represent as, I want to be with that person. And that's the goal. Because when you work on yourself, as opposed to trying to fix everyone else who's messed up in the world, you'll find that you now start attracting people who are consistent with that loving, contributing energy that you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I so resonate with everything you're saying there, Joe, and you've summarized that really beautifully, and we really thank you for sharing that generously. When I work with my private clients or my group coaching clients, I'm taking them through the exact process that you're describing, clearing the past, clarifying the vision, creating the plan for moving forward. And it can really help sometimes to have the support or the guidance of a coach to help guide you through that process. And I just think what you're talking about is so powerful because it does set us up to be able to be empowered to attract into our lives more of what we want. We don't just feel like it's just by fate or chance or, fingers crossed that something like this is going to happen. So I love what you've shared there. That was really beautifully said. So Joe, I really want to thank you so much for your generosity and sharing your wisdom. And I know that the things that you've shared are really powerful and can really create momentum in a really positive direction for the women listening here as they apply them. So I really appreciate that. And ladies, Joe and I are really grateful for your presence, for your attention, for listening, for being here, because the fact that you're here and you're investing your time this way speaks to who you are and that you are the kind of person that is committed to having the kind of life and love that you want in your life. So we honor you for that. And we hope to see you for more. Bye for now.